Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about existing ethical issues with some of our high-tech companies. This is Dr. Louise Perkins. There's a mathematician who was also a satirical folk song singer in the 60s, and his name was Tom Lehrer. And one of the quotes from his songs is, he's trying to talk about how the other people don't, he's trying to make fun of the fact that the young people are asking for things that everyone wants, not just the young people in the 60s. And so his folk song says, "We all hate poverty, war, and injustice, unlike the rest of you squares. But of course the idea is everybody knows that poverty, war, and injustice is bad." So everybody really would like to build corporations that minimize suffering, maximize happiness, save the planet, and prepare the way for future generations. The question is, are they willing to sacrifice profits to do so? So what are the pressing issues that are focusing on high-tech businesses these days? Believe it or not, they're not what you think, and I'm starting with one of the weirdest ones, but PETA has an enormous pressure and presence. So we do have questions about, should we give other animals rights? We now have technologies that can scan what a horse is thinking while we talk to him. And we have evidence that horses understand English. That makes them pretty smart. Should they have rights? Coco, the gorilla, her sign language is beautiful. I realized that the language studies place requirements on deciding whether or not something is intelligence. And because the chimpanzee studies, which were previous to the gorilla studies, were shown to be less effective than originally claimed, they're very careful not to claim that Coco the gorilla can sign. But I'm an interpreter for the deaf, so I don't read Coco's translated words, I read her signs. And when I read Coco's signs, I'm telling you, I feel like I'm reading a person's signs. So I'm willing to say that gorillas are pretty dang smart. Coco watches TV. Coco cries at all the right parts. She gets sad and turns her back because she can't watch the terrible parts she doesn't like. I can't explain. We raised squirrels. We rehabbed one more closely than the other from the time his mother died, was run over by a car when he's very, very little. So we bottle fed him. So he really imprinted with us. He watched entire movies on our couch. He was a couch potato squirrel. He sat there and watched entire movies till the end. He knew when it ended. He knew when the story was over. It was incredible to me. What do dogs know? We're starting to read their thoughts. Believe it or not, octopi are turning out to be very intelligent. Do animals have to think to be able to have rights? In Argentina, the courts gave a chimpanzee the right to live in a natural habitat. In Canada, in contrast, they upheld the idea that pigs are property. And so you can transit them for 36 hours without food, water, or rest, because they're not animals that have rights. So courts are struggling with this issue, and IT is helping it along, because our technological advances are showing us what these animals can and cannot do, in contrast with us. And us means humans. Another question we're going to have to answer based on our high-tech capabilities is, should we edit our children's genomes? Should you be able to go in after you've conceived or even before you've conceived and pick the genes that you would like? Let's say you take 50 of your genes and you can tell which subcomponents are the best parts of you. Should you be able to pull those out and make one genome that is all of the best part of you, so that your child is smarter than you, prettier than you, kinder than you, stronger than you, whatever your best characteristics are. Should we be able to edit our children's genomes to make them better? This is a race of superhumans in essence. And once we pick all of our characteristics, should we be able to change those to make those even better as well? What we can and cannot do as we create children is a difficult decision, and I think enormously ethical. I would argue that it's unethical to edit the children's genome, period. Now, I'd also argue that abortion is bad, and sometimes you learn that a child is going to have a terrible disease and never be able to do anything that the world would consider important with their lives. The parents may still consider it important, and the children may still consider it important. So it's not even clear if we should terminate pregnancies when there are really bad problems. All of those are difficult questions that I do not have the answers for. I do know that I have asked groups of young people, young adults, if they think they should be able to edit their children's genomes, and almost universally they say yes. They want to make school easier for their child. Even though if we increase things across the board, school will still be hard. They want to make them better looking so that life will be easier for them. They want to make them better athletes. I enjoyed the fact that my child was a combination of my husband and I, and it was pretty cool to watch that individual person grow. But that's not the same. Another question is, should we make everyone normal? Can we build pharmaceutical chemicals that make us all the same? If we were all the same, as a society, we would be more empathetic. We would be able to relate to the people next to us better because they would be making the same decisions we would. We would be a much more homogeneous society. It's hoped that if we make everyone normal, we could decrease aggression, improve moral reasoning, improve the ability to forgive, remove aberrant thought patterns so we didn't have deviant behavior. By making everyone normal, we are trying to create a utopia. Is the literature right? Do all utopians end up a dystopia? Nobody knows. But we will move closer and closer to the ability to make everyone the same. Quite frankly, the book 1984 scared me enough. Believe it or not, there are many people who are arguing that we should simply abandon privacy. Maybe the pony's already left the stall. Maybe the train's already out of the station. Maybe it's impossible to pull back the idea of privacy. But the benefits of privacy may outweigh the loss to y'all. If your computer can do everything for you, knows who you are, knows what you like, and is basically your servant that solves all of your logistic problems in your life, are you willing to pay for that with a loss of privacy? Many people are. I would suggest that you go online, an example, Facebook, and you can ask Facebook how much data it keeps about you. You can literally ask it, what are you saving about me? And you can edit it and tell it not to save some of the things. Facebook keeps your data down to a frequency count of your emojis. I'm sorry, I find that enormously intrusive. But you can decide for yourself. You should go onto Facebook and look up what it keeps about you. And of course, Facebook is not the only one. Should we give robots the right to kill? They can be made more and more accurate, probably more accurate than people. The current rule of thumb is an order of magnitude more accurate. Is the threshold when you should move to automation. More important, right now, even though they're remote devices, a person still pulls the trigger, and so that person still feels responsible for the murder. If we make it more and more accurate and it saves humans from having to pull the trigger, then we actually save those human beings from feeling responsible. A quote attributed to Goldie Meyer in the book A Land of Our Own, but not necessarily able to be collaborated, is, "When peace comes, we will perhaps in time be able to forgive the Arabs for killing our sons, but it will be harder for us to forgive them for having forced us to kill their sons." She is saying that it's harder to recover from having committed a murder than actually having that murder occur in your own family. So we would be able to save humans this horrible guilt of killing someone. But at what cost? Have we released robots that now can kill from any enemy at any time? Should we create synthetic life forms? Should we create our own lives? We're about able to do it. Dolly was certainly an example. That's the sheep that they cloned. Does this include genetically modified organisms? Because we're eating them already. They're in our corn. They're in our grain. Those are all genetically modified organisms. Those GMOs help reduce the amount of pesticides we need to put in our food. So that keeps us from poisoning ourselves. Is the Andromeda strain, which is a book, something we should worry about? It was a book with an extraterrestrial organism landing on Earth by Michael Crichton that killed almost everyone on Earth. There was a Will Smith movie, the original. I think there are two movies before Will Smith. One is called The Andromeda Strain. I'm not sure the book is called The Andromeda Strain. And maybe 10 years ago there was a Will Smith movie, maybe 5 years ago, where he was kind of the last guy alive in New York, and he was trying to find other people and fight off all those zombies. That book was also, that movie was taken off of The Andromeda Strain too. This is a really hard question. And the reason is because one small mistake could wipe out the entire species. In World War II, in the Manhattan Project, the question was asked, if we ignite the first atomic bomb, will the oxygen in the atmosphere catch on fire and burn up the entire world? And they didn't know the answer. They did the math. They worked on the math. The answer was no. But who's willing to take that risk? That was a big risk.